Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, a part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and we have a full team in-house today for our Matchday preview. Oscar, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Zach, how you feeling? You all right, bud?
I'll cut off the really long, elaborate answer where I tell you that I've been out all day and I'm tired. So let's just say that.
It is our preview time. We are coming up against the Cherries at the weekend, and we had a crossover episode yesterday and elaborated on it a bit, but we've had a press conference since then, so, you know, we're all assured that we still don't have any centre-backs. Zach, I'll go to you first. It feels like last week was the game that if we were going to see Bella Kotchap, we're going to see Bella Kotchap.
I know I've become like the de facto person we ask about this question about. I think it's because I was one of the people that brought it up first because it was on Twitter a lot. I'm kind of, unless by the sounds of it, Stevens, Bednarek, Bree, Manning, Wood, and everyone else is injured. I just don't think we're going to see him. That's not Anna Rebo. I'm sorry, Anna Rebo. Backup centre, which again says a lot. Is it a case of, you know, all I'll finally say on this is that he has come in and he has given other players a chance. Players that did not thrive under Russell Martin, players that did not get a chance under Russell Martin, right? He said it was an open slate. He said what he liked to see of him in training. He said he wanted to see a bit more. It's now been multiple weeks since then. And I think that we have a huge squad. We have lots of players in it.
But no left centre-backs, not even Taylor Howard-Bellis, who he plays there, but at least he can use his left foot. Is that a scathing indictment of the rest of the squad?
I haven't seen it yet. Did he say anything about Wood?
No, I think Wood is... He also said he doesn't naturally fit a left-sided centre-back role, so that's why he wasn't played last week. He would rather see someone who can use their left foot and isn't a centre-back play that position than someone who is a centre-back but can't use their left foot. Which I guess I can kind of see. Yeah,
I understand it. I mean, you need that balance, and maybe there's a certain intricate part of his system that requires that. But again, for me, I think if we've got players there, if we've got Wood there, for example, that'd be who I'd be putting in there. But I'm not a manager.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we go back to some sort of centre-back or we stick with this ridiculous 4 fullbacks solution. Zach, Oscar and I shared our opinions yesterday, so I'll throw it back to you. How are you feeling about this game? Are you feeling like it's a good chance, or are you feeling like woefully beaten down?
Somebody commented on one of the TikToks we put up 4-0 to Bournemouth, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I can see that. I could also see us playing it game by game and potentially doing something different. The problem is it's like, at the moment, it's expect the unexpected, right? We still haven't... The fact that at one point we were playing 2 left-backs and 2 right-backs in a centre-back, in like centre-back positions around that area, it's just a bit weird to see. And then I also can't go over the cognitive dissonance of Juric saying we played well at Burnley and it was a really good performance and there were things that he thought were good. And I'm like, we lost 1-0. We barely had a shot.
I really enjoyed the quote where he said, I thought we played really well until they scored. That was his Juric-esque entire input on the solution.
Sometimes I feel like obviously they try to say things that doesn't put a massive negative light on it. Just take the L. That's like where I'm at, right? Like obviously I know this is a completely different sport, but like looking at the Kansas City Chiefs' reaction to the Super Bowl of just like, yeah, we were just bad. And like, I just want them to come out and say that sometimes rather than this BS of like, well, we did some really good things here and there. It's like, no, we didn't. We lost 1-0 at home to Burnley on a game that was barely sold out on a miserable day. And all of us were sad that we had to watch it. And all of us wanted to do better things. We love Southampton. We want to see us win. It's difficult to be optimistic, right? And I feel like you can see that in the fan base itself, that they felt like before Burnley we had a chance to do something. We lost in a really bad way. Luckily, it wasn't in the league, but at the same time, it would have made a blind bit of difference anyway. It's really hard for me to imagine us bouncing back against a team that are in the form that Bournemouth are in. But on top of that, Bournemouth have this weird thing where, apologies to Vic, but this weird thing where like we are considered super rivals to them, right? And we just don't reciprocate. Same with Brighton, where they tried to mug Brighton off about the whole come to the good part of the seaside. Like they're really trying to push the rivalry because it means more to them than it does to us, and that's fine. But like you could see that in the first game. I think they potentially might just want it more. The other side of things though could be that once again we are woefully unpredicted, and we end up coming out and doing well. But I just don't think that like when we did that against Ipswich are a calibre of team that when we go man for man, kind of similar. When we go man for man against Bournemouth, I expect Bournemouth to probably come out on top. And that's just, and on top of that, they have the form to back them up. So I'm not hugely hopeful. But as always, Greg, I am really, really happy to be disappointed in my predictions. Unlike you, where all of your predictions ruin your day.
It's part of the cycle. Right, before we get into team lineup predictions, I want to touch briefly, I don't want to spend too much time on it, on the ever-evolving Flynn down situation. I guess what's come out of the press conference is that maybe publicly calling out your player for that and throwing it into the wild hasn't been the escalation that would solutionise it. Oscar, do you see a way back? or is this really the end of it with Flynn?
I think it's difficult. I think with quite a few of these managers, I think Diblin came out today as well and said that how good a relationship that he had with Russell Martin as well. And he obviously was very personable, and that's the impression I think every player that's played with him has given. And all of a sudden someone coming in and who probably doesn't take as much, give as much leeway, should we say. I can understand why people don't like it, but at the same time, just knuckle down and be professional. Is there a way back? You'd like to think there always is, and Juric has said that a few times about other players, so you'd like to think so. But, we discussed last time about professionalism with players and the new generation and things like that. So I think it's basically the ball's in Downs' court as to what he wants to do, really.
I don't think it was bad to come out and say it. I don't think he would have said it unless it was relevant. I agree. There was one guy, I think, that posted that said to us on Blue Sky, like, well, I think that those comments definitely shielded a lot of criticism of Juric from the Burnley game, because basically, admittedly, even I said myself, it put more of my focus was how annoyed I was about that, probably to get over the fact that I was actually quite upset and annoyed by the Burnley result. But like a week later, obviously they've asked him for questions about it. It's like, is he going to be involved? No. That says a lot. Like, he's not back in the Matchday squad at all. Is there a way of resolving it? I'd like to resolve it, yes. How far are you away from that? Yeah, I'm not talking about that in a press conference, which to me says, well, actually, it's miles away, isn't it? And you're right. Russell Martin was, very, very impressionable. We all liked him. He was a really nice guy. It's probably one of the reasons he got more time than he probably deserved. That was fantastic. But unfortunately, the results were bad, and he lost his job, and that sucks. And the problem is that they might blame themselves for it. Do you know what you would do to redeem that? Get on with your job. That's what I would have to do if my manager got fired and I lost, and he got fired because of results in my performance in the business I work in, right? The outcome from that isn't that I'm just like, well, I'm not going to do it anymore because I liked him. I'm like, get on with your job. You're paid tons of money to do it. Like, I'm sorry, if you're being asked to play a different way, and yeah, okay, Juric might be not the most impersonable guy to them. They might struggle because, they had this really close relationship with Russell Martin. But that is also a problem, in my opinion, that maybe you shouldn't be having managers have such close relationships to that level with their players, because whilst there needs to be a step of professionalism between them, right? It's one of the things we always talk about how Ryan Fraser is like his best mate, and that's basically how he got a contract here, and now he's left a little bit out in the lurch, right? And it's like, well, yeah, because it should not necessarily be that way. And obviously everyone's got different ways of managing, but I'm really worried it's going to become like a talking point for the rest of the season. If he wants to rot in the reserves because he's having an argument about throwing his toys out the pram, that's fine, because, it means that they'll sell him, but they won't budge on price, so then he can just have an Armel Bella Kotchap moment and spend all of his time not getting game time. Is that going to be good for his career? Yeah, I'm very much in your court, Oscar. Knuckle down, get on with it.
Yeah, I agree. Right. Moving on to team lineups, but first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. So, here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so predicted lineups time. Let's start at the back. Nothing in the presser about Ramsdale, so hopefully he's back in goal, right? That's got to be an opinion across the board, I presume.
I really hope so.
Yeah. I think
and then
go on,
Oscar.
I was saying, I think if you look at it, I think there are five players that, without doubt, if they are fit, they are playing. For me, and I'd imagine it would be for them as well. And that's Ramsdale, Bednarek, Wellington, Fernandes, and Sulemana. I think if those five are fit, they're playing. Probably Walker Peters, you chuck in there as well. It's just around that where I don't think there'll be too much rotation. I wouldn't have thought.
No,
there shouldn't be.
So Paul comes back into the mix.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What are we doing at the back with Howard Bellis and Stevens out? Do you think we stick with what we had last week, or do you think you see Wood come in?
I think when he was asked that question in the press conference, it's like, you could play these players. He was like, we are playing fullbacks and centre backs. You're right, and we like it because it gives us lots of attacking threat. I feel like he'd probably try and do the same. It's going to be weird to try and outscore a team that score more goals than us, for sure.
It could be another Spurs, honestly.
Pace on the counter-attack as well.
Yeah.
It could be the time that we played Bournemouth, where we decided to experiment with a weird formation, and that turned out to be absolutely terrible. When we were at one point playing all of our wingers as strikers, it was weird. So, yeah.
I'll throw another name into that mix of be straight on the team sheet if they're fit. That's a good Chugwu, right? He wasn't in your list, was he?
Yeah, I would have him on my list for sure. In terms of if it was my choice, he would be starting week in, week out for me. Have you got other options there? In terms of, I'm trying to think of it as Juric thinks of it, and Will Smallbone, for one reason or another, doesn't seem to resonate particularly strongly with all of the fan base, I'd say, and yet both of the managers seem to be very keen on him. There's a few players like that. Stevens seems to be a bit like that as well, and I think they're obviously seeing things in training or seeing something that makes them really believe in them, and
it's almost like being someone who pays money to go and watch football doesn't qualify you as much to go and have an opinion as someone who they pay to do it, which I am 100% guilty of, to be clear.
Yeah.
Right, same. You play one too many games of FM, and you think you could run Barcelona. It's one of those situations where I think they're both incredibly good utility players. The problem is that when they're brought on as subs, like Will Smallbone, bless him, it's just that he's not a game changer. There's one thing that Martin always used to say, right, is he brings him in to calm the game down or whatever. And the problem is 9 times out of 10, when we're in a situation that we've needed to bring in game-changing subs, we also usually need a goal or two, and that doesn't always happen. There have been instances that it has, and I think that, obviously we've got personal vendettas, it's probably the wrong word, but personal opinions about the suitability of Stevens, but also he's a centre-back that's got significantly more Premier League experience than most of our team at the moment. And, for one reason or another, he is the captain. And, for 7 minutes we saw of him, it wasn't the worst player that I'd seen on the pitch when, he went off injured. But it's one of those things that just frustrating, right? And again, this reeks back to us talking about it previously, Greg. We've talked about all season where our bench quality just isn't that exciting. And there doesn't seem like there's anyone there to be a game changer. That's not, in my opinion, the fault of the players. It's just that, previously, even to an extent, the sort of renaissance of Suleiman is great, but there were a lot of times that he was brought on for explosive pace in the last 10 minutes. It just didn't happen, whether it be tactics, whether it be. So yeah, I think he gets a bad rap for the fact that he's not really starting. He's being brought on sort of as a substitute. And when everyone's like, we've brought on Will Smallbone, it doesn't have the same fireworks,
joy,
right? It's just not like you've just brought on Jude Bellingham. You're kind of like, so Smallbone's come on, and you're like, great.
It's difficult as well because I don't really know what he is. Is he a ball winner? Is he an anchor midfielder? No, probably not. A bit too lightweight for that. Is he a deep line playmaker? Probably the closest to what he is. Is he a number 10? I don't think so. It's like he almost just he can do a little bit of everything, but
jack of all trades, isn't it? Jack of all trades, but when you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. And I think that's the thing, is he's brought in to replace a player that's potentially tired and play the role that they're playing in. And sometimes he can do that to the level that is like a Joe Aribo or whoever he's replacing, and other times he doesn't. Probably not to the fault of his own. It can depend on the momentum of the game. I do find sometimes we make really weird substitutions in situations where we're like, oh, great, you're going to bring on like Cameron Archer with 5 minutes to go when we're 1-0 down and we don't look like we're going to score. That's going to be great for his confidence. But also, if you'd done it 30 minutes earlier, would it have made a huge difference? So, yeah, I think you're right in the sense of he's a very much sort of, in my head, he's a very good utility player where he can fill those gaps, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if at any point we were like, well, our centre-backs have gone on. I guess we'll put Will Smallbone at centre-back.
No.
Just wouldn't be surprised by that.
On that. You bring Smallbone in to boss the entirety of the midfield and move a Rebo to centre-back.
Yes, no, you're right. We did see that, and it was bizarre. And that's when you realise that, when that should have been the answer to any questions about Armabella Kotchap at any point, right? And now even Wood potentially is getting a little bit of that treatment, which I think is harsh. But ultimately, it's how Juric wants to play, and if he wants to play with ridiculous attacking threat, I guess he's just going to shove a bunch of attacking fullbacks in our defensive line.
Yeah.
Was the young French lad? Is he left-sided? Do we know?
I don't know where he plays actually.
I wonder if that was. I assume maybe why he was looking at him, because maybe that was an area that he wanted to strengthen. It would make sense, but we do have quite a lot of centre backs, so
it is weird that it seemed to be. I think I was saying it a while ago. Like, it seems to be a position we have tons of players for, but apparently none of them fit there anymore. It's really, because I think that was one of the few times that when we went into the beginning of the season, I was like, well, we've got a ton of defensive options now. That should be really useful. And still seems to be a place that everyone's like, sell Bednarek. And I'm like, but yeah, it's bizarre. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I've always found, I still get worried that our right back position is really lacking, because I'm still scared from that season where we ended up playing like James Ward-Prowse in right back because everyone was out injured. My brain still flicks back to that occasionally. And centre back, it does feel like we both have no centre backs and like 100 at the same time.
It's a strange one.
Interesting one. And I get the only other name I haven't touched on. Do we think Tyler Diblin still gets a start? You still think he's one of the names on the team sheet? Or has he got more to do?
It's difficult where he fits in, because if you look at the front three, who are you dropping out of Sulemana, Fernandez and Tulpool? I think it's a tricky one. I don't think any of them merit dropping, really.
No, I agree with that.
But then you said about having... Point. Yeah, I think you're about to say the same thing about having options to come off the bench. 100% that will add. And another name we haven't mentioned as well is Grombach.
Yeah.
So a couple more, a bit more promising options off the bench now. That just seems to come through soon,
I guess. And also, he's been promising his first couple of games. I think he's fallen a bit under the radar because he had a good solid first game, and then the Burnley game is just etched into our memory. It's the same thing with like Wellington played quite well in that game, but the result was so, I think, infuriating. It clouded a lot of people's opinions on like who did well that game. I think it was Total Saints podcast or somebody put out like a poll, their player of the match, and it was like 85-90% Wellington, because he was one of the few players that actually did stuff. So that means that theoretically we have more like fullback options off the bench as well.
I think he got into some, it might have been Who Scored or some statistical website. I think he was in the FA Cup team of the week for the round, which is interesting because like I say, I didn't notice loads of stuff that he did really well, but
I think it's at this point, having somebody, whenever we lose a key player, having somebody to come in that is sort of able to instantly pick that up without us being absolutely terrified they're going to bottle it, is always a nice thing, right? Especially like the goalkeepers is a significantly bigger question, but it is one of those things that like Ramsdale's out and instantly we all go, oh no. And then like when Duffy went out and we were like, oh no. It's nice now that like when we have players like, if for example Kyle Walker-Peters is out or Manning is out, like, there's competition. They have to kind of up their game a little bit to get in. Whereas when previously they're just like, well, I'm the first name on the team sheet. I don't need to put the same amount of effort in, and also who you're going to drop me for. Whereas now there's like, I think it adds that element of competition which you need.
I'm quite excited actually, because it'll be the first time, hopefully, I'll have seen Wellington and Grombeck in person and actually sort of get a proper measure of where they're at. That'd be nice.
Get to shout and swear at them at the top of your lungs, mate.
Always. You know me. Okay, so we're going to move on to score predictions and how we think it's going to play out tomorrow. But first, a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sport Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up, broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, that everyone's favourite section of the show, I'm sure. We've already got some reactions on social media from my guests, but Zach, as the member of the team we've not heard from, I'm going to throw to you first. How do you think it's going to play out?
It's really difficult because I genuinely think that if they manage to hit us on the counter much better than Burnley did or anyone else does, it could just be a drubbing. I'm not going to say 4-0. Potentially, it could be another 3-0 situation. Let's say that we manage to score a goal, go on, Paul Onuachu scoring, so maybe 3-1 to Bournemouth. That's kind of where the realist is at. I'd love it to be your prediction, mate, genuinely, but like it will help me feel better when your prediction is fulfilled and mine lies dead in the water. If not, at the very least, I'll be able to sit through it on Saturday, knowing that I guessed the score correctly again. So, yeah, 3-1 Bournemouth. But I think I'd like to see Paul get us a Murray's goal again.
Oscar, have you changed your opinion at all?
No, I'm going to stick with mine. I think for me, I feel that's quite an optimistic one. I'm not entirely sure it will happen, but I've just got a feeling. I went 2-2 with the Paul last minute equaliser. I think 2-0 down the first half, and we looked dead and buried, and then all of a sudden something happens, and then we suddenly start waking up again, and then we throw the kitchen sink, and then it happens.
The final proof that it's not a derby when Paul still celebrates in front of the Bournemouth fans and doesn't get a response like Liverpool-Everton, right?
That was nice to see. Charlie Alcaraz hasn't changed as well. I think the pictures I saw of him scrapping with a policeman.
Commentators saying, "This is not the scenes you like to see," where I'm sat there thinking, "This is exactly what I want to see." So,
100%.
You pay to go and see, right?
That's it. Unsurprisingly, I'm unfaltering in my optimism. I'm sticking with the 2-1 win. I actually think we might go 1-0 down and show some resilience and mentality and fight back. I think Sulemana will get the first goal and Paul will get the winner, and the roof will absolutely come off St Mary's, and I'll be singing all the way home.
So that's you really just want me to lose 60 quid, don't you? That's what actually it's going to be more, because I'm going to need his name printed on the back. Oh, good.
Have you got to get the Premier League badges on it as well?
I don't think we agreed to that. I guess I'll have to find out whether that's in the terms or not. But yeah, thanks, Greg.
Needs to be a club official shop as well, mate. None of these dodgy websites. You can't be having that.
I ain't using none of that. I didn't even know they existed until you told me about them.
I don't know what you mean. Okay, well, that is just about all we've got time for today. So if you see us down at St Mary's, give us a shout, say hello. If not, we look forward to seeing you Monday when we talk about the fallout and whatever comes. We will be here.
One last point, and it's just that, to be clear on Flynn Downs, I know it might sound like I came across, I don't know, this is my own personal thing, right? Might I come across like quite angry, quite aggressive. I think he's a really good player. I think he's probably deep down a really good guy. I just think this whole situation is horrible and gross and should be sorted out for the sake of both player and club. And I just want to make sure that that's like put out there into the world, because I don't want them to think that I'm sat there like I just hate him and have a dartboard that I'm throwing at, because that's not how I feel. It's just that it's incredibly upsetting and disappointing. But that was just wanted to make that point before.
That's it. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you Monday when we're talking about our gracious win against Bournemouth and our fight back to avoid relegation. Until then, the relentless optimism continues. Oscar, Zach, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, mate.
And we will see you then.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.